Shortboards are known for their size and portability, but in that pursuit, they always sacrifice range. The Max2 Pro claims to be in a league of its own. Does it live up to the hype? Let's find out. Full disclosure, MaxFind did send over the Max2 Pro for review, but they have no say over what I say in this video, and they're going to be watching this video for the first time right alongside you. Let's get started. I weigh about 190 pounds, so generally I get a worse top speed and range than manufacturers claim because I'm heavier than the average person, so just keep that in mind. MaxFind claims a top speed of 24 miles per hour, and in my testing I was able to top out at around 22 to 23 miles per hour, so that sounds just about right. There are 4 riding modes, 1 being for beginners and 4 being the maximum speed and power available, and I found all 4 riding modes to be useful and distinct. If you give this board to a total newbie, they're gonna love modes 1 and 2 to start out, and more experienced riders are gonna love mode 4. This is by no means the fastest or most powerful board with a top speed in the low 20s, but because of how short and stiff the deck is, I found I wouldn't wanna go over 20 miles per hour anyways. This board has hub motors, which means the motors are built into the back wheels, which not only look clean, but the main benefit of hub motors are that they're quieter, you don't have to replace broken belts over time, and most important for a board like this, the rolling resistance. This board can freewheel just as well as any skateboard out there. Meaning, if you run out of battery or you just want to kick push for fun, this is the best board I've found yet. This might not sound like that big of a deal, but it changes the whole riding dynamic because all of a sudden, when you let off the throttle, there is no, and I mean no, motor resistance, which in the real world means I end up just coasting more than I do with any other board that I own. If you want an electric skateboard that you can just kick around like a regular skateboard without the added resistance of the motors, this is your best bet. And because the battery and ESC are built into the chassis on the board, it's almost passable as just a regular cool looking skateboard. Speaking of ESC, it uses Hobbywings 2.0, which gives smooth acceleration and reassuring braking. Given that it's a short board, I found the power and acceleration to be more than enough, and I think for almost all riders, this board is going to be perfect. It's powerful enough to have fun and feel playful, but not so powerful that you're scared to hit full throttle. The only thing it's missing with regards to the ESC is I wish it had an auto on and off. You have to turn on the remote and the board, which a lot of boards in this price range, if you turn on the remote, it'll turn on the board, or you can push the board and that'll turn it on. So I wish it had that. Not that big of a deal, but it is a minor inconvenience. The deck is made out of a carbon fiber and nylon fiber mix, which basically means it is incredibly light, but also has 0 flex. That lack of flex helps the Max2 get better range, but at the cost of road vibrations. Between the stiff deck, 90mm wheels, and short foot stance, you are going to feel bumps and cracks. That being said, the Max2 is a beautiful shortboard at 31 inches. For some reference, regular longboards are generally around 38 inches, and this is the first board where I actually want to keep it clean and show it off because it just looks pretty. Every other board I have, I actually kind of like the dirty, dusty look because it makes them feel like they're tools, and tools earn their scars and scratches. But the Max2 looks like a showpiece with the subtle triangle cut marks along the bottom. Looks are subjective, but I absolutely love how the Max2 looks. The trucks, bushings, and board all feel very solidly put together and makes the whole package feel premium. And it does that while only weighing 14.5 pounds. For some reference, most electric longboards weigh in the high teens to low 20s, with the Meepo Voyager weighing in at 23 pounds. That 8-pound difference might not sound like a ton on paper, but it makes an absolutely huge difference in the real world. Even something like the Meepo Mini 5, which is a similar size and range, weighs 4 pounds more than this board. So what they've done here with the weight is an impressive feat of engineering. I feel like I can just pick this board up and toss it around, carry it up a flight of stairs with me with no problem, and that's something I can't say about most other boards. And because of its shorter length, picking it up by the front truck and walking around with it is easy and comfortable. I actually think the size and weight of this board is its biggest draw, even when you compare it to other short boards. It's so small and light that it feels like no big deal to carry around, and if you're someone who needs to walk upstairs regularly or take it to class and stash it under a desk, I would definitely get this board over a regular longboard. MaxFind advertises a range of 21 miles, which for a board this tiny and portable feels almost not possible, but like always, I put the board through my own personal range testing. For some reference, I weigh about 190 pounds and I rode it pretty hard, generally staying around 20 miles per hour, and well, I gotta say, I'm really impressed. I averaged about 15 miles on a single charge, which means I'm getting around 70% of the advertised range. That might not sound great, but that's actually pretty normal for me because of my weight and riding habits. For a short board like this, I think that's more than enough range. We'll get into it more in the next section, but generally speaking, on a board like this, I don't like to ride farther than about 10 miles without giving my feet a break, so I would give the range on this board an A. Short boards have a reputation of having short range, generally 10 miles or less, but this one is in a whole other league. Another big benefit is that because of the board's next to no rolling resistance, if you ever do run out of charge, you can just ride it like a regular skateboard. Also, for them to get 15 miles of range out of a board this light and compact is awesome. For most longboards, I'm always demanding bigger batteries and more range, but because this board is meant to be portable and lightweight, I think they perfectly balance the ratio between range and portability. While the Max2 Pro knocked it out of the park with range, carving and ride feel, it's a bit of a different story. Longboards are almost always going to provide a more comfortable riding experience. That's just the reality of the situation. This is a short board, which means your stance is going to be more narrow, and for a taller rider like me, it does feel a bit cramped. The board width also means if you have larger feet, mine are size 11, they're going to be hanging off the sides basically all the time, no matter how you angle them. This isn't much of a problem, except for that sometimes if I'm turning sharp, my shoes rub on the wheels. As far as road vibrations, due to the fully rigid deck, relatively small 90mm wheels, and hub motors, you're going to feel every rock and crack you have the unfortunate fate of rolling across. Mostly, this isn't an issue. Your feet may hurt a little bit after riding for a while, but the main consistent problem I have is that where I live, we have a lot of chip-sealed roads, which basically just means the roads are covered in tiny rocks, and on some of those roads, especially when turning at higher speeds like 20 miles an hour-ish, the vibration is so strong that your feet can slide off the board and it's really easy to lose your balance. I have had this problem with other 90mm wheel boards, but most other boards have at least some deck flex that absorbs some vibrations, but this board doesn't, so it's just gonna be a bumpy ride. The bushings are great, they give a smooth carving experience. My only problem is that because the board is so narrow, when I carve sharp, my feet hit the wheels. Otherwise, I would loosen up the bushings more so I could turn even sharper. Because the board is so short, you actually can put weight on the back of the board to pick up the front wheels and turn that way. It actually works pretty well and I do it regularly. I just wish they would have added a kicktail, basically an upward slope at the back of the board to make it easier to do this type of turning. In that same vein, I wish they would have added a little protection to the bottom of the back of the board so when you lift the front wheels up and the back hits, it wouldn't grind on such a pretty deck. I've said it once and I'll say it again, short boards should all have kicktails. This board starts at $350, but the version I have is the long-range dual motor design, which is currently on sale for $600. I'd say for most people, unless you have a specific commute that you need the extra range for, I would go with the most budget version. That should give you a minimum of 10 miles of real-world range, and it seems like a better value unless you know you need those extra miles. As far as bang for your buck, the cheapest version seems like the best value, but if you need more range or more acceleration, you can always upgrade. This board absolutely blew me away. I went into it thinking I probably wasn't gonna like this board that much because generally speaking, I don't like short boards as much because they're less comfortable to ride. And while this board is for sure less comfortable than my other longboards, it still had me reaching over my other longboards to ride this board. It's tiny, compact, lightweight, and easy to carry around. And if those things aren't important to you, definitely get a longboard. But if you have to carry your board for any length of time, I highly recommend this one.